Getting into the territory I've been in a little bit, the most extreme form of rapier, the LK Chen Tizona review by Skallagrim. It does look good. Is that a is that a Schlager? Schlager are kind of like more oval-shaped blades. I can't see the sides. I do like the wire on the hilt. I do like that.
One of my patrons asked about the LK Chen rapiers, which I hadn't gotten around to reviewing yet. I wanted to do some more test cutting with the military rapier, but I realized test cutting with this is probably not going to take very much. And I've already done the hardcore thrusting tests. That's somewhat questionable phrasing.
No. Keep the phrasing. Look, if you're not making the funny jokes, my good sir, I see that your thrust has ended up right under my chin. Are you really sword fighting? Let's be honest, okay? Let's be real. HEMA, SCA, ACL, whoever out there, right? Let's be real, okay? It happens. We flirt way too much.
I mean, how much more can I do with this than stab mail? There is really no reasonable harder test than that, except maybe stabbing a dead tree. Although, depends on just how rotten it is, how beautiful.
I love his wrist work here, though. That's something that I doing rapier have kind of like had to notice. So right here, he's nails up. This is, what was it, 4 when I'm in SCA when we discuss 1, 2, 3, 4. I don't have hands on screen, or else I could probably show you a little easier. So if you take your right hand, right, and you have you turn the back of your hand to the left, and it's above you. That's like 1. 2 is the inverse of this, which is going to be nails down, so your palm down, back of hand up, right? So your true edge is going to be facing to the right. 3 is going to be kind of like the standard, like, generally what you'll see people see. It's going to be more akin to this, but just rotate this 90 degrees to the right. So your nails, right, will be facing to the left. Back of your hand will be facing right, and you're kind of just on point with your opponent. And this would be 4, where this is going to be nails up, the back of your hand is down, your palm is up, your true edge is facing to your left. And you'll notice with rapier, a lot of it is going to be, you're kind of creating a cone, if that makes sense. So you have your point, right? So, I mean, imagine his point a little bit more to the right. And now imagine him just turning hhis wrist in one motion to go from nails up to nails down. So going from 2 to 4, or vice versa, 2 over here, 2, 4. All that can expel blades like nobody's business. Rapier is such an interesting format.
Although, depends on...
Yeah, so he did 4. He's going to about 3 right now.
Just how rotten it
That's about 2.
is.
Back to 4.
How abusive that is. Yeah, it's not any worse than what I already did. And
looks very
especially
stiff.
Stabbing one of the heads from Ballistic Dummy Labs doesn't get any more realistic than that. So what more can I do? I'm done. Might as well review it now. By the way, big shout out to the patrons. At this point, I couldn't do it without them anymore, so very much appreciate the support. If you want to join, link below. So this is the Tizona Spanish rapier by LK Chen.
Of course it's Spanish. I've had to fight so many Spanish rapiers.
A cup-hilt rapier, as you can see, it's quite obvious what it's named after. And this is, in my opinion, the most extreme form of rapier. When people talk about how rapiers can cut, this is what they're talking about. This is really optimized for one purpose, and that is thrusting. It is quite nice to see, and even better to handle, a historically accurate reproduction of this kind of rapier. There are plenty of...
It almost looks like a Schlager blade. I don't know how do I showcase what that is? It's probably not. I'm trying to find a good example. Words. I can't do words today. I can't really find a good example of it. But it's a blade type that, instead of kind of being like, you have your points and it's more vertical, it's like more rotund. It's more like obtuse, right? I can't really draw that on paint because then Twitch would not like the image that I drew of that. Just gonna throw that out there. Oh, it's so frustrating because I know like the words, I know how to like explain it, but visualizing, ooh, that's a Schlager for $260. Hello there, how are you doing? Let me stop looking at swords because I will buy a sword on stream. Anyways, I tried looking for pictures. It doesn't show like the head on, but this feels like it's a more stout blade because the blade feels more obtuse. I don't know if it's a Skallagrim by definition, but it does feel more obtuse. Thus, a little bit less give than we saw with his other rapier. Rapiers are supposed to give, right? They're supposed to bend. That's kind of the whole shtick of them. That's not a bug. That is in fact a feature.
Rapier reproductions on the market, which are frankly not particularly good.
Yeah.
And this is one of the best that I've tried so far, quite easily, in fact. It has some flaws, but if you need a too long didn't read, or watch in this case, and just need to know real quick, is this good? Should I consider buying it? The answer is yes.
Fair enough.
So let's get to the long answer of what makes it good and what its flaws are.
Honestly, I actually really like the cup, the cup hilt. So how swords evolved, right? How we get from a long sword, right, that has kind of like the signature like cross kind of design, right? The European longsword, we get, 2 Keons from the crossguard into something like this over the course of a few hundred years. There was kind of a little bit of a step in between where you started to get kind of like a little ring onto this is kind of like, the start of the evolution. Then you'll get different like wire hilts and stuff like that. Really, the core of the evolution, as I understand it and have discussed with SCA, I'm paraphrasing here because it's been a while since I've had these conversations, but when you look at an evolution like this, it's because you don't need a bulky longsword. I mean, if you're going to be in a back alley and someone's going to be like, oh, good sir, I would be relieving you of your possessions, right? It's much easier to have something like this that's not as big and bulky. You're able to, draw it fairly quickly, in my opinion. And then it also protects from the dreaded hand sniping as well, right? You got your digits, right? Notice how the bowl, the cup, is protecting your digits fairly well, even with wire hilts. Like the amount of interactions I've had in Rapier, oh boy, we're gonna have a lot of people chiming in as well. The amount of times in Rapier where I've had an opponent thrust through the wire and hit one of my digits is a non-zero amount. This is also why we wear gloves, right? Why we wear armor, why we take precautions, why we just don't go, here's a Rapier, let's have at it, right? That's why we take precautions for this. Because losing a digit, right, even if it's just like, you get your index finger absolutely smashed, I can't type with that. I'm pretty sure it'd be hard to do your job with that. So it's why we're safe about these kinds of things. I can't stress safety enough.
What makes it good is it handles the way it should.
Good.
So there is a distal taper, which isn't as important with this because of how much mass you have in the hilt and just how thin and narrow the blade is, but it still has one. That is quite a substantial distal taper.
No, I don't think that's a Skallagrim then. But that is, however, a very... that blade does things to me.
It's not as visible because of how narrow the blade is, but...
It also has a cutting edge, to be fair.
You definitely tell. It sure has one, and it gets very thin here. It needs to feel and move like a cup hilt rapier, so the balance needs to be very far back, which it is. It's almost at the cup, and you need that because you want all this point control. That's what this is all about.
Oh my god, if I hear point control one more time, that's not a Skallagrimism. That is... It's one of those things, when someone drills something into your head so many times that you're just like, oh my god, here we go again. In a good way, kind of, right? That's it. That was the SCA with Rapier format. Point control, so much point control. And it's hammered because it's to be fair, that's how the format goes. Have good point control. Make sure that you're... not necessarily pulling hits, but make sure, we're trying to be safe with each other. So instead of just fully thrusting at somebody, right, you'll like thrust forward and then you'll like step forward into them, right? Once again, I'd have to like actually like pull up a camera, have somebody like actually film me doing it so it could actually like make sense. Like it's hard to explain, easy to show, but it mitigates the force that we're hitting at, right? Good point control, being able to gauge distance properly, etc. I love swords, if you couldn't tell.
You need to be able to quickly and easily disengage and guide the point exactly to where you need to in a rapier duel. And arguably, it also needs to be pretty because this is the weapon of a refined gentleman who uses it to defend his honor in duels rather than partake in the butchery of the battlefield.
The key word here is Renaissance, right? The rebirth, a period of enlightenment, of education.
And it does that too. So let's start with the aesthetics. Is it pretty? Yes, it certainly is, with one exception. Very nice open work on the cup. Seems
I can
pretty
dig that.
precise
I like
overall,
that.
and
It's very aesthetic.
appealing decoration. And also you got the important functional part here, this lip there, which is supposed to catch an enemy rapier blade instead of slipping off the half dome, which would be quite easy. Some of you might think, what's up with the screws? Isn't that anachronistic? Nope. The pommel is quite nice too.
It does look really good.
Lots of decorative touches, as was the fashion back in the day. This was not a peasant's weapon by any means.
No. I'm a fan of wire wrap grips.
At the inside of the cup. Now, what I don't like to see is this right here. There's some substantial flaws in the steel.
Okay.
Look at all the pitting there.
Mm-hmm.
Looks like it's torn out. It's kind of like a moon crater landscape there. That's very rough.
Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't expect that area to fail, but just cosmetically, that's quite rough. You know, from most angles, it's hidden by this lip, but you will definitely see it, especially on this side. It's such a jarring contrast, though, to see the beautiful filigrane decorations, and then right underneath, there's what looks like Nova Scotian roads after winter. Okay.
It depends if the pitting was... I don't think they would test these things, right? Surely not, because it's kind of like when you buy a firearm, how the moment you take it out, it's like a car, it'll instantly lose value. Like, you will not get the value you bought it for. You go and you buy an M9 for 900 USD. You come out, I mean, you're not getting 900 USD back for that. Let's be completely real, right? I mean, it would not be a new blade at that point, right? So I think we can easily dismiss that. So I wonder what in the metalworking process is going on with that, as well as how one could reasonably address that.
Not that bad. These roads are something else. On LK Chen's website, it says this is inspired by different rapiers, so not a replica of one specific original. Although looking at it, it seems to me that it was based mainly on this particular cup-hilt rapier from the 17th century at the Metropolitan Museum in New York City. The pommel is different and the decorations are not the same. The proportions seem a little different, but the original was shot from a lower angle than my picture, so that distorts proportions a bit. But as said, it's not a specific replica, it's meant to be an amalgamation of different pieces. I really like the darker wire wrap on the right, though. I wish they had done that here too.
Unironically, I kind of like the monochrome on the left. That's so strange, because usually I'm a fan of all black.
I would call very good. It's a nice, smooth satin polish, and it's very well shaped overall. And the fit is excellent. No gaps, nice and tight. Everything's great, with the exception of the wire wrap. I thought the wire wrap was very tight, but now that I keep using it, I do see that it shifts a little bit. When using it, the wires keep shifting out of alignment here and there. Like,
that would drive me nuts.
You can see, you can realign them again, but I can tell that that initial tightness is loosened up because now I can feel a little bit of movement in the whole wrap.
Yeah.
Like it's just shifting a tiny bit.
I wonder how you kit repair that. Like, I mean, it's kind of like how I need to... If you happen to be an expert in gauntlets, I got a pair of gauntlets from a cutlery shop a couple cities over, and the plate on the knuckles is so incredibly tight that it actually like rubbed part of my knuckle raw. So I need to get in there somehow, and I need to like lift that plate a little bit, but I don't even know what tool to use for that. If you happen to know, I'd be very interested in some resources or how you would best go about that. And I'm sure I could chuck it into the Discord at some point as well, because I need to figure that out. I actually really love those gauntlets, but like they're really tight when I started using them. I'm sure there's a way to kit repair it, but I don't know how invasive that's going to get. And especially if we're reviewing it out of box, the kit repair thing kind of like, it goes the way of like, oh, well, Skyrim is a 10 out of 10 game. Once you start adding like the unofficial patch, start adding this mod, okay. But the review is for Elder Scrolls Skyrim out of the box, right? It kind of does the same vibe.
And I imagine it might get worse over time. So
Probably.
That could be better. I would definitely like to see that wire wrap tightened up some more. As far as handling goes, as I said, it moves like a cup-hilt rapier should. It's nice and fast. You can guide the point quite precisely, and the handle is quite comfortable. Doesn't need a glove, which some wire-wrapped handles kind of do. This is perfectly comfortable, although now that the wire wrap has loosened up a little bit, it's less comfortable because I can feel it shift a little bit.
I would say good practice, just wear gloves anyways, personally, especially if you're going into... I mean, obviously for SA, we don't use sharp edges, right? And we put a... what's the correct word? We called it a blunt. It's like the thing you put on the end of, like, arrows that blunts the tip, right? Like, it's just a rubber blunt. And you put that on, and then then we would, honestly, like, we would... put it in 2 different colored tape, one for kind of like around the tip with the tip still visible. That way, you know that the sword itself is not puncturing through that. And then below it, you would have that as a different contrasting color as well. So I think like on one of mine, I think I have like white around it's like a black blunt, white around the edges at the tip, and then red below it. So it's an easy contrast. That's also for safety as well. Nobody wants to get stabbed by an implement that's supposed to be blunted, but the blunt has flown off, and thus you're getting the full force of a blunted tip. It's just not a fun time.
Expect the longevity of this wire wrap to be great. That's one of the downsides here. Yeah. And finally, there's durability. Can this be used in a realistic way without being damaged, loosening up, breaking, falling apart, who knows what? And the answer is a definite yes. I tested it together with the other rapier against riveted mail to see if I can't get through it, which I did. It put enormous stress on the blade, as you can imagine. You can see right here just how much it's flexing. So it's very important that it can withstand that without breaking or taking a set, and it didn't. It's quite flexible. You know, with this
can't tell if there's an edge on it or not.
Thickness and width, there's no way around that. It doesn't permanently deform. That's the important part. It's still nice and straight.
The issue is when the bend does, the bend starts to be permanent. Even then, you can kind of get away from that as long as you monitor it. And obviously, you know, I say we had like marshals and stuff and, you know, people who could check that, double check it. One of the big ones you have to look forward to is when it starts S-curving. Which swords can do and have done, where, you know, so you see how it was curving down, right? It was kind of a, you know, C shape, right? That can, the inverse can also apply. So you can go, it can become an S. And at that point, you kind of need to just toss the blade at that point because it does become a safety hazard.
It's very hard to show on camera. If I put it in front, maybe you can kind of see it. You could argue that this is an unreasonably hard test because this wasn't designed to defeat mail armor to begin with, but there are instances in history where a duelist was accused of wearing a concealed shirt of mail after an opponent's blade broke off on him. Whether he was really wearing mail or whether it just hit a bone and it broke on that, I don't know, but it's plausible that somebody might do that and it might actually inadvertently encounter mail. So either way, it held up beautifully, no problem whatsoever. Looking at the blade profile and the edge, I highly doubt I'll even get through a water bottle without a core, but we'll find out. Center of percussion is pretty low. Yep,
nice.
That's what I expected. Yep, there's the mark. Okay, I'll try again. Nope.
I wouldn't
even get through
I wouldn't use it in the same way that I would like a katana or something. I've actually been itching to so I use Cold Steel, right? I use their polypropylene, like their trainer line of products. I end up using those because I don't know. I just personally enjoy it more. That's a little bit more weighty. I think the transition into steel is definitely a little jarring in certain aspects, but far less jarring than going for something, say, like Boffer to steel. I can't do Boffer anymore. Look, I respect Belagarth. I respect groups that use PVC pipes or whatever, padded in foam. It doesn't move correctly. I can't do it anymore. I know it's great for people starting out. I know it's great to kind of go out there and minimize risk, but like I can't do it. I can't go back. But anyways, thought process on training more with my polypropylene trainer of a katana. No, I don't know, like because rapiers can cut. I can't quite ascertain it seems like there is an edge onto this versus something what we do where we just knock it down, right? Like there is an edge onto this. I know one of the plays we did was, and this kind of emulates it, right, is to kind of use it like a scalpel. So if I thrust forward with a rapier and I land on your, let's say I land blade onto your shoulder, right? It doesn't count. Like if I how do I word it? It's hard. I'm going for percussive, those have been an SCA. If I say come from the side and whack your shoulder, if it's flat, it's no good. If I whack you with it and it lands on the edge, it's still not good. What's required at that point to make it a valid cut, and this is especially relevant because I use longsword and rapier, I literally handicap myself, but it's way more fun for me, is that you have to pull, you draw cut that. Thus, you're cutting through skin, cutting through muscle, etc., right? So that's, at least as far as I'm aware, a large part of usage of a rapier was to not necessarily close the gap, and sure, like going forward, right? You're kind of sawing back and forth, right? In a way, right? You get the edge on and you slide forward, that's going to cut. You get your edge on, you pull backwards, that's going to cut as well. Land, you're not chopping a thing. You're kind of, using this nimble scalpel with point control to outmaneuver your opponent.
Plastic of a bottle, and there's no way this would do much.
Bonk.
We got a little something. We got a squirter.
Oh no! No! Go, baby, go.
Yeah, that's probably the most that's going to happen. I don't think this is the kind of rapier you can cut with at all. Yeah, it's very difficult to keep this in focus, but hopefully I can give you a good look at the blade. So you really can't have much of an edge. If you look at just how narrow and thick it is, there isn't much room to really taper it. You can't get a fine angle there. Yeah, sure, you could hone the edge some more to make it feel sharp, but it's still not really going to cut.
No, you're going to thrust, though.
This is just not a cutting blade. This is the antithesis of a cutting blade. Well,
and to be fair, like, what is the concept of a thrust, though? Why are thrusts so powerful? You have a single point and all the force driving into it, right? With a cut, it's a movement that is evenly dispersed along the blade for all intents and purposes. If you're thrusting, say, you're stepping forward and you're, full on thrusting forward, that is all going into that single point. It's why, as much as I like Shinai, the bamboo cutting, not the bamboo cutting, like the bamboo kendo swords, don't thrust with those because, one, it's not padded, in my opinion, nearly appropriately, especially using it with beginners and stuff, right? But that's just that also puts stress on the bamboo. Just don't thrust with them. That is a lot of force to put in such a small area, and this thing will thrust.
I suppose the real antithesis would be in an S-Talk with like a square cross-section or something like that. Of course that works.
Very easy.
If it didn't. Just imagine it broke from that. The
That'd be
stabbing
awful.
performance, if you will, is on point. I got him in the jaw muscle, which is pretty rude.
So now from that, let's go back, right?
Oh.
So now from this, what the play would be is for him to pull backwards, keeping the edge along the skin, right? That way you're getting a laceration from that edge.
Which is pretty rude.
Bonk.
There it is. Got him right in the eye. It was pretty light, really. And that's what makes it so effective in the thrust. This needle point here.
Mm-hmm.
It goes through material with very little resistance. And it's been holding up quite well, too, particularly against the male. You can see that, maybe you could just about see the tip is just very, very slightly rolled. It's more like a burr, so no significant damage. It also comes with a scabbard, which is nice, but it's really more for storage.
Yeah.
There is no suspension of any kind. You can attach something to it. It doesn't fall out when you tip it upside down. Even when you shake it, it doesn't
Does
come
what
out.
it needs to.
But it's nice and quick to draw. So this is exactly the sweet spot. This is perfection as far as scabbard fit goes. Just enough resistance that it's securely in there, but not so tight that you have to yank on it really hard to get it out. So this is just right. And yeah, simple, but there's nothing wrong with it. And by the way, this is the downside of rapiers with such long blades. While they give you excellent reach, they can be a little hard to draw.
Yeah.
Even if you wear it pretty low, it's not that easy to draw because of just how long it is. So
that's got to be what? 30? I'm trying to figure out how long that would be. 30 something.
It's not that easy to draw because of
at least 38 inches, potentially 40. I don't know that I wouldn't know the dimensions offhand.
Just how long it is.
It is pretty long.
So final verdict under the acknowledgement that it was sent to me for free to review. So there's the potential for bias.
So cool.
But I showed you the issues with it, the flaws that it has. But even considering those, considering the price, I think this is pretty easy to recommend. I'm not aware of a higher quality cup hilt reproduction in this price range, and it was fun to test it, and I hope you enjoyed this review. Let me know what you think, and thanks for watching. Link and specs in the description as usual, by the way.
Oh, thank you. I was looking for that, actually. Specs. 47 inches. Okay, we're getting that'd be why it's so hard to draw. So 47-inch total. That is a 40-inch blade. That's, for context, that's like on par with my longsword, okay? Like my longsword and my buddy's rapier, he's like a couple inches taller than me. We go ham. This is the same buddy who shot over my gorget under my helmet. Dude's rapier is as long as my longsword, okay? Like we have back and forth, and that is the perfect just showcase of how range works, whether it be larger individual, same side blade. Oh, I love when I get to fight him when I can. Yeah, that'd be why the draw. I know people use, what 34s are pretty common. 36 inches is a little longer. It is, for all intents and purposes, a very long rapier for all things considered. But I thoroughly enjoyed this as well. I know someone asked if I engaged in the funny. Thus, I will have to open Discord, obviously. This floats around every now and again. This is one of the best images that I've actually taken with, sorry for the small resolution camera at the time. I don't know how, it's because it was a wide angle shot and I did this. Yeah, I might enjoy combat a little bit. Might enjoy it a lot. I kind of miss it, but I like videos like this. I like watching Skallagrim review stuff. I like Skallagrim doing stuff. And honestly, it's one of those things where, like, I've talked to a number of people who are just like, they don't know how to do things. They're like, they don't know how to get into it. Like, oh, well, sword combat interests me, or this interests me. Where do I start? Right? It starts watching people like Skallagrim. It starts checking out your local, say, SCA chapter, HEMA chapter, etc. Right? Like, it starts with just doing some basic stuff, showcasing that interest, and being willing to learn. Not being like, well, oh yeah, all of this just makes sense. You know, I didn't need to watch this, right? It starts with that genuine interest. And I feel that genuine interest is reciprocated in a lot of ways, like a legally distinct medieval weapon game, right? Where you talk to someone about their favorite faction, right? And then they'll tell you about their favorite faction, right? Go just seek out that information. There are people who love to teach. When I was in SCA, we had our Baron. He loved teaching new people, right? Absolutely. There are people willing to teach. There are people willing to engage in this kind of thing, people willing to do these kind of reviews. And like I keep saying, I think it's important that we make sure that we keep supporting individuals we think are worth it and who ultimately are the difference on YouTube, right? You know, in a sphere of untransformative React content, in a sphere full of AI slop, in a sphere where Logan Paul does something every other week. He's even quiet for a minute. Don't get me wrong, but I'm watching him, right? Creators like Skallagrim are what make the difference. And call me biased if you will. I honestly think that Skallagrim's character shows that I, as a random dingus on the internet reacting to his content, he has consistently been a creator who has responded and also engaged in discussion. So I'll state, sure, maybe that makes me biased, but ultimately I think that he's just a cool individual who does some cool content, who you should definitely check out, by the way. Thank you, everybody, for watching. I really do appreciate it. Thank you, Skallagrim, for another awesome video. I absolutely loved it. I thought it was great, and that it was full of information. Also full of things where, like the wrist movements and stuff, if you've done it, or you're at least familiar with the concepts, you can pick up on without it being explicitly explained. I do love that about it. I'll see you in the next one.